Hi, let's look at media recording in case of Android. In Android, we can record audio in two different ways. One is using your media recorder class, which is available in Android.media package, and the other is using your audio record class, which is also available in your Android.media package. Using media recorder is very easy and also give you lots of flexibility. But when you talk about audio record class, even this is highly flexible, but it is a bit complex. So what we will do is we will actually begin with seeing an example of how to record audio with media recorder, and then we can go ahead and see an example of how to record audio using your audio record. Okay, so using media recorder class, we can record the audio in two different formats. One is 3GPP and the other is your MPEG-4. In whatever be the case, this is the typical state diagram. You initialize it, you then set the audio source or the video source, and then you configure the data source, prepare recording, and then you may have to actually release it. The most important thing is you must release the media recorder as soon as you have finished your recording. Otherwise, you will get into the problems of not able to provide this media recorder to other applications within your uh, phone or whatever it is. And in case of your media recorder, you have uh, what we call two different, you know, I would say uh, interface classes. One is your on error listener and the other is your on info listener. The on error listener interface class has a function called on error, which will get called whenever there is an error. The other interface class is your on info listener, which is actually used to give you um, an error whenever there is an error that may happen during the recording. And then Android Media Recorder or your Android actually supports a number of media formats. If you look at your media formats, you have, in case of audio, you have AAC, HEAC V1, HEAC V2, AMR NB, AMR WB, FLAC, which is supported from Android 3.1 onwards, and then you have MP3, MIDI, Warbus, and all of that stuff. But look at the encoders. We are recording the audio. When I mean recording the audio from the raw format, we are actually able to record the audio and store it in some file. So this is possible only if you have encoder support in case of Android, and you have AAC, AMRNB, and AMRWB only. But the file formats that you can actually allow to be stored are either 3GPP or your MPEG-4. Okay, so if you see here, let us go to your audio source. Audio source is a nested class of your media recorder. You have the different constants for different types of your audio sources. The camcorder, from the camcorder, whatever you want to get. Mic will give you the microphone audio source, and voice call. If you want to actually make a voice call recording, you can actually make use of this. These are the different sources. In the same way, while setting the media recorder, you will also use the nested class called audio encoder, which has these different constants: AAC, AAC, ELD, AMRNB, and all that stuff. So the nested classes typically provide us with the different types of constants that we'll be using while creating your media recorder class. Okay, so for example, output format. It has got the various output formats that you can actually use here. In the same way, you also have your video encoder. If you want to record a video, right? What is the type of video you want to record, and all that stuff. So let's do one thing. Let's get started with uh, recording an audio file using the media recorder class. Let's begin now. So the first step is to create a new project. So I'll actually go ahead and create a new Android project, and I'll name this Android project as Hitesh Media Recorder, and I'll name this as com.hitesh.media recorder sample, and I have an activity here called Hitesh Media Recorder activity. And oh, so the SDK targets are actually not set here. So let me close this. Let me go to Eclipse Preferences, Android, browse, and let me browse my SDK location, software, Android SDK, and then here I go. So cool. So file, new, let me go ahead and create a new Android project, Android project, next. So media recorder sample, I'll select Android 2.2, I'll say com.hitesh.media recorder sample, finish. So I have the project available. So let's begin with defining the layout for this project. When I say layout for this project, I want a simple layout. I want to just show the info. I want to actually create 3 buttons. One button is to start the recording, the other button is to stop the recording, and the third button is to say select the format for recording, whether it is MP4 or whether it is 3GPP or whatever it is. So let's get to my main.xml. In the main.xml, I will update this string by hello. So let me go to strings.xml and I'll upload this hello from hello world, etc. and say this is a media recorder sample. Click on record to start, click on stop to stop recording, click on format to change the output format. Perfect. So let's go to our main.example. I have the text view which I want. Then let me create a simple linear layout for my 3 buttons, but I'll make this as horizontal. I don't need this. And then let me close my linear layout. And I want 3 different buttons. So let me copy this text, put it here, and I'll say button, and I need 3 different buttons, so let me copy 1, 2, 3. So text will be start, stop, and your format. Let's go to our string.xml. What do you need? You need start, stop, and format. Start. I'll make this start, stop, stop, format. And let me say the default is always going to be MP4. Perfect. So what's the next step we have? For each of these buttons, let me give an ID. Android :ID is equal to @+ ID / start button. In the same way, I'll put this for your start button as well, STOP, and I'll put this for your format button. Format. Perfect. Alright, so we have the layout that is ready for us. Okay, so let's go to our activity and start our work with the activity class. So in the media recorder sample activity, um, I have the activity available, and what I will actually start doing is I need to create 3 buttons. So I'll say button start, stop, formats, and then I will call all the button handlers. So what I will actually do is start is equal to button find UID or dot ID dot. Okay, so I need to save this first, and yeah, my dot ID dot start button. Then I have stop is equal to button find UID or dot ID dot stop button, and then I have format is equal to button find UID or dot ID dot format button. Okay, and for all of them I'll say set on click listener, and I will put an object of type btn click or whatever I want to actually put. So I will say new btn click. So let's define the interface class btn click implements view dot on click listener, and we have the function on click that is available for us here. Perfect. So what is the next step we have? The next step we have is about using our media recorder class to actually start recording the audio. So let me create an object of the type media recorder. So I would say private media recorder is equal to now. I don't want to initialize this recorder unless and until we seriously want to start recording or do something like that. Okay, so in my on click function, what I would do is I will go for a switch case, switch v dot get id, and then we have case r dot id dot start button, and then we have case r dot id dot stop button, and then we have case r dot id dot format button. So in the start button, I would go for a function called start recording. Let me write that function and click on break, and then I'll also write a function called stop recording, and then I'll call break. And in case of format, I want to ensure that we do some formatting. So I will say show dialog of say 1. That's fine. So let's see how it works. So let me create a start recording. So I created a function called start recording. In my start recording function, I have an object of the type recorder. So let me actually start using it right away. A recorder is equal to new media recorder. Once we have the media recorder, I want to set the audio source recorder dot set audio source, and as we discussed previously, it will be of the type media recorder dot audio source dot, I want to actually make use of my mic, and then I want to actually set the encoder. So I will say recorder dot set audio encoder. I'll again use one of the uh, inner classes, media recorder dot audio encoder dot, I'll say AMR MB. And what else do we want to do? Yes, we have to set the output format. So what I will actually do is I want to make two different types of output formats available. What are the two different output formats? Let's go back here and say output format. We have either MPEG-4 or 3GPP, or there are different other formats. But I would want to stick to MPEG-4 or your 3GPP. So let me create your integer variables. Private int OP formats, and this is going to be an array. This is equal to combination of media recorder dot output format dot MPEG-4 on one hand, and the other option is your media recorder dot output format dot PGPP. I don't want to give any other options other than these two. And by default, I will say private integer default format is equal to 0, or I will say, let me not say it as default format, I would rather say it as your current format. And initializing it to 0 makes it record by default as an MPEG-4 file. So what I will actually do here is I'll say recorder dot set output format, and I will say OP formats with cur format. And we can update this variable called cur format using the dialog that we'll be showing whenever the user clicks on the format button. Okay, so next we actually need to set the path where the file that we are actually recording should get stored. So I will say recorder dot set output file, and what I will actually do is I will call a function called get file path. Let's go ahead and define this function, private string get file path, and I want to actually make use of our SD card to actually store the file that we are trying to record. So I'll say string file path is equal to environment dot get external storage directory dot get path. So I'm getting the path of the external storage directory, and then I actually want to create a folder within this what you call file path. So let me actually do that. I'll say file is equal to new file path comma media recorder sample. So this will actually create a folder by the name media recorder sample in your SD card. And once this, if it does that, so actually it will check, I'm just creating a file pointer. So if file does not exist, then what I will actually do is I'll say file dot make dir, make the required directories, and then I would actually return a file which has file dot get absolute path plus I want to actually create the file name. I'll be creating the audio file in the format of system dot current time in milliseconds plus I want to actually save it as a 3GPP format. But whether it is 3GPP or whether it is, how do I say, MPEG-4 will depend on the current media format that you are actually using, whether it is your MPEG-4 or 3GPP. So what I'll actually do is I'll actually create a string array, private string file extension is equal to, the first one is your MPEG-4, so I'll say .mp4, and the second one is your .3gpp, so I'll put it as .3gpp. Perfect. So in the get file, apart from this get current time in milliseconds, what I will actually do is I will actually add the current time in milliseconds plus the find extensions of what's the default format, current format. Perfect. So this will actually return the string file path, which actually goes here, and you're actually setting the output file name. Then you want to create an error listener or whatever it is, you can always do. But let us start recording now without wasting any time. So I will say try catch exception e, and then I'll say e dot print trace, and then try. What I will actually do is, so let us go and look at the state diagram of your media recorder. The first and foremost thing is you initialize, you set the audio source, you set the format or whatever it is, you set the encoder, you set the output file and all of that stuff. The next thing is you have to prepare, and once you prepare you can start the recording. And I would say prepare is an essential step here because it does the entire steps that are required before we actually start recording. So I will say recorder dot prepare, and once the recorder is ready, I will say recorder dot start. Okay, now that we have the start function, let us also create a method called stop recording. And what do you want to do in your stop recording function? You want to actually stop the recording, so you will say recorder dot stop, and the other step that you want to do is you want to actually do a reset of the recorder, and you want to actually release the recorder. And it's also sometimes very essential that you may recorder is equal to no. That's it. But what happens is we have to be extremely cautious. If the user presses the stop button without even touching the stop button, then your recorder.stop will get called, but recorder is null previously. So let's actually make this as if recorder not equal to null, that is when we will be doing all the stuff. Okay, perfect. So even your stop recording function is also ready for us now. Right, so what's the next step? The next step is whenever the user clicks on the format, you may want to just change the format. It can be either your PGPP or it can be your whatever. So let's go ahead and implement your function on create dialog. So I'll go to source, override implement methods. What's the function I want to do? On create dialog. So let me go to my on create dialog. In the on create dialog, I prefer all my functions to be at the bottom. I want my function, the first function to be here, is always on create. So let me go put my on create dialog, and in the on create dialog function, I just have one dialog. So irrespective of whatever is clicked, let me return an alert dialog. So alert dialog dot builder build is equal to new alert dialog dot builder with an object of the type this. This refers to your context here. And then what are the different formats we have? String formats is equal to, I have MPEG-4 and then I have PGP, right? So sorry. Then let us actually start creating a build dot set title Tuesday format, and then I will say build dot set single choice items with formats and the by default selected one. What's the by default selected one in our case? Remember the integer variable that we have defined, our format, and the third one is your new dialog interface dot on click listener. Perfect. So we are getting on track. So in the on click listener, all I will do is I will say current format is equal to which, that's set, and then I will be returning build dot create. So yep, I hope we have written the entire source code that is required. So let's right click, run as, and see how this application will work. Oops, I think we forgot one important point. We have to use the permissions to record the audio and to write into the external storage, because we are actually writing something back into the external storage. So let me come back here and I will use users permission android colon name is equal to android dot permission dot reco or record audio, and then I want to actually make use of another permission, that is to android dot permission dot write underscore external underscore storage. So now let's right click, run as, and see how. Okay, so we have the app here. So the default format is going to be MP4. So let us start recording. I am pressing start. Let the recording begin. MP4 format, sample, blah blah blah. Stopped. Now I'll go and press 3GPP, and once I press 3GPP, I'll say start. So recording started, it's recording in 3GPP, blah blah blah, 3GPP, 3GPP, and stop. To check if both the recordings have happened, let's go to the File Explorer from DDMS. Yeah, so this is the File Explorer. We have both the files, your MP4 and your 3GPP. So let's download them onto our desktop to see how they are recorded or what they have got recorded. So I'm downloading the MP4 file and I'm downloading the 3GPP file, and let's go and play them using say VLC or something else to see how they work. Okay, so this is the MP4 file and let's play it. Let the recording begin. MP4 format, sample, blah blah blah. Okay, just too crazy. Fine, so this is about recording the audio using your media recorder class in both the formats MP4 and 3GPP. We will be seeing how to record audio using audio recorder class next. Thank you.